This is the road to war for the roadside star system, especially for our homebrewed location of Archer Sierra. In this video, I will briefly go over the background of this conflict, as well as present the first battle report for the campaign. Game Masters, this video is designed so if you want to run this campaign, it can serve as a campaign intro for your players. If you're new to how our campaigns work, check out the description for the link to a video about our campaign rules. What follows is partially from the Tamar Rising setting, sprinkled with additions and interpretations of mine to help fully flesh out our campaign. Roadside, just like Bluehole, was once part of the Lyran Commonwealth and Federated Commonwealth, before ultimately being conquered by the Clan Jade Falcons back in the 3050s and 60s. However, with the destruction of Clan Jade Falcons in April 3151 and their failed invasion of Earth, precipitated a rapid collapse of the Jade Falcon occupation zone, with star systems either declaring independence, falling into chaos, or being snatched up in small micro-empires. In our campaign, Bluehole was able to take the collapse of the occupation zone in stride, and was able to weather the power vacuum with little to no violent upheaval. Roadside was the complete opposite, and was immediately pounced on by opportunists trying to pilfer the resources on Roadside. But before we get into its current situation, let's take a few steps back and look at why Roadside is so rich in our campaign. In our campaign, several years prior to the collapse of the occupation zone, a lucrative, resource-rich asteroid named Archer Sierra was artificially inserted into orbit of the planet Roadside. Clan Jade Falcons established mining facilities on the asteroid to extract the resources, utilizing the oppressed populations living on Roadside. The asteroid is covered in both automated and manned mining shafts and facilities. To enable transportation of the mined resources and the forced human labor, a network of suspended track and rail systems were built to connect all the settlements. Now, not all these routes represent rail lines. Some of these are possible avenues of approach that armies can use to move around on the map. I also want to point out that this is a map projection of the asteroid. If some mechs walk along this route, they will pop up over there, and vice versa. The same happens with this route going north, with your army popping out down in the southern part of the map. Archer Sierra is not that big of a place. The players will need to keep this in mind or risk being outflanked. To provide life support and housing for the forced labor, Clan Jade Falcons established these 4 facilities which provides basic human life support. To picture this, imagine the living conditions for the research facilities built in Antarctica. They are designed to sustain the science teams to conduct their research for a few months out of the year. It's not designed for someone to put down their roots and start a family or something. Now imagine those same conditions, but with hundreds of forced labor mining specialists. It's crowded, it's uncomfortable, and also recall this is an asteroid, so it has low gravity and zero atmosphere. Nobody wants to be there. 3 additional settlements were built with starport capabilities. They were built on the asteroid to facilitate the logistics of storing, loading, and shipping of the resources from Archer Sierra to Roadside below, where the resources were further refined. These starports have limited anti-aerospace weapons designed to shoot down falling objects that could damage the starport. It provides limited defense against dropships landing. Now, if you're a veteran of our channel, you've likely seen a battle or two on Bluehole. For that campaign, players tended to fight over logistics hubs so they could repair their mechs. The players were always thinking long-term about controlling political points, protecting their economic points, and collecting tactical and strategic points. Well, on Archer Sierra, the players are not bothered with any of that. None of these facilities can support logistics, so all repairs will either be field repairs or conducted by maintenance platoons that were brought along with the armies. Also, both sides are not trying to win the hearts and minds of the people of Archer Sierra, because there aren't any. As soon as the occupation collapsed, people abandoned their posts and returned home. For this campaign, the objectives are simple. One side is trying to capture and/or destroy settlements, while the other side is trying to prevent that. Okay, so now we've had a little tour of Archer Sierra, let's get back to why there's military forces on their way to have a little war here. As I mentioned earlier, soon after the collapse of the Jade Falcons, Archer Sierra was abandoned. It is basically a ghost town, a very valuable rock sitting in orbit just waiting to be claimed. However, the economic potential of Archer Sierra cannot easily be exploited without some sort of control of the planet below. Roadside needs some sort of governance, which currently, there is none. Just like with Bluehole, foreign factions have pounced on Roadside to lay claim to the planet's resources and people. But unlike Bluehole, Roadside was invaded by several small-time warlords, pirates, mercenary units, and other opportunists, which threw the entire planet into chaos and divided the planet into tiny, warring factions. Then along comes the Duke of Vesper Marches. The Duke, attempting to avoid getting directly involved in Roadside's military affairs, was trying to influence the planet with financial resources and empty promises. He was able to forge a small conglomeration of various factions which have sworn allegiance to the Duke, but their loyalty is paper thin. In fact, several warlords within the Alliance would start fighting one another if the opportunity presented itself. And you know what? Things were beginning to calm down on Roadside, enough that Vesper Marches began to make claims on Archer Sierra by hiring a security company to partially occupy the asteroid. Hard to dispute ownership when there is no law and it's occupied by armed thugs. Everything seemed to be working out for the Duke, but then the conflict of Blue Hole kicked off and it wasn't going well. It wasn't long until the Aliena Mercantile League sent operatives to Roadside to instigate upheaval and frustrate the Vesper Marches' activities in and around Roadside. A nuisance, but manageable. But when the useful idiot of Baron Corbin authorized an attack on the two major power plants of Blue Hole, the leader of the League, the Syndic Marina, authorized a limited military operation against the Vesper Marches' interests in the Roadside star system. A recently financially acquired mercenary unit under the umbrella management of Jefes Chupacabras was tasked to invade Archer Sierra. The ultimate objective of the Chupacabras is unknown by the Vesper Marches. However, it could be one of two options. Option 1, the proportional response. The mercenary unit will simply destroy as many facilities and settlements as possible to punish the Vesper Marches for striking against the valuable power station on Blue Hole. This could also be an attempt by the League to force Vesper Marches to divert resources from Blue Hole to Roadside. Or perhaps it's option 2, the strategic positioning. The mercenary unit could be attempting to seize Archer Sierra as preparations for a follow-on invasion of Roadside. You see, Archer Sierra is a tidal locked in a geosynchronous orbit over the northern hemisphere of the planet Roadside. This makes it an ideal location for observation of all combat units in the northern hemisphere. And if you garrison some aerospace fighters or place some air defense weapons on the asteroid, then you can prevent enemy aerospace assets from entering the northern hemisphere of Roadside. With the wisdom provided by the notable nobles of the channel, the Duke signed a contract with the mercenary unit, the Grinning Top Hat Incorporated, authorizing the Merc unit to defend Archer Sierra from the Chupacabras. Several local warlords from Roadside have committed forces to the defense of Archer Sierra as well. Some have already moved forces to the asteroid, while others wait transport by the Vesper Marches on Roadside. The problem is, the Aliena Mercantile League has operatives on Roadside, and it is not clear if any of those fickle, indecisive warlords have been bought off by the League. Okay, the stage is set. Game Masters, if you want to run this tiny campaign, you can head over to our Patreon and pick up the resources there. But from here on out, there will be spoilers. So if you want to play this campaign as a player, stop watching now. Or, if you wish to see the first battle of our campaign, sit back, relax. It is starting in 5, 4, 3.5. Alright, let's just get this thing started. Are all the hopeful players gone? Alright, then let's get into strategic turn 0. As I mentioned before, the Vesper Marches, through dubious diplomatic missions, has cobbled together a loose alliance of scoundrels. These ragtag forces are good at destroying defenseless towns and robbing people, but not well suited for toe-to-toe combat. Plus, as you may have gathered, they don't like each other. So the player representing the Vesper Marches Alliance has the opportunity to pre-position a few defense forces. Unfortunately, these guys dislike one another and cannot be placed in the same location, or they will fight one another. The Alliance player wants to defend all the settlements, but is prioritizing the 3 starports. He also realizes that the Chupacabras are fond of dropships, so he wants to keep his forces within the protective Aegis defense, even if it's subpar air defense. However, unbeknownst to the Alliance player, but now known to you, the audience, the League has already infiltrated a few operatives onto the asteroid. Unfortunately, the security company hired by the Vesper Marches has centralized the control of all security cameras and monitoring devices of the settlements, routing all the data to their location of Thaumadrift. Therefore, if the operatives attempted any sneaky secret squirrel sabotage, they would be detected. So the operatives, appealing to the deep dislike of the other mercs and digging deep into the pockets of the Alyena Mercantile League, did the next best thing. They bought the loyalty of the security company. Behold, the power of the mighty Sea-Bill. The poor Alliance player is not yet aware of this treachery, and arrayed his initial defense forces as such to hold and defend the starports, waiting for the merc unit that the Vesper Marches has sent to aid them. But as you can see, his forces are spread thin. His intent was that the security company would move to reinforce any location attacked, but now they have abandoned his cause. The Chupacabras have already jumped into the star system and are standing by on their starships waiting to land. They would love to have a secured starport to deploy their forces. So, the security company, in secret, departs Thaumadrift and moves to secure a starport for their new, wealthy allies. This is the Battle of Port Easteridge. Welcome to Port Easteridge. This is one of the 3 starport settlements on Archer Sierra. It has 2 anti-air weapons that provides Asia's defense, but they cannot engage any of the ground forces. Now, I want to remind you that Archer Sierra was abandoned when the Jade Falcon occupation zone collapsed. But that doesn't mean that there weren't any stragglers left behind. These facilities are designed to hold hundreds of people. It's easy for someone to hide here. Strange, eerie silence haunts the halls of these facilities, with the occasional unexplained echoes and strange sounds that go bump in the night. These places are ghost towns, and these armies don't want to be here. Speaking of the armies, let's have a look at them. Let's start with the attackers. The recently financially acquired Murphy's Misfits, doing business under the management of Jefe's Chupacabras. The security firm has dispatched their first security lance of 4 urban mechs. Accompanying the urban mechs is a lance of Ontos heavy battle tanks. Both lances are skill level 4. Defending Port Easteridge is Vic Vander's Delgard, a local ally of the Vesper Marches. The fighting on roadside has been rough, and these forces have seen better days. The light battle lance is comprised of a Wasp, a Firefly, and a Fire Moth. Unfortunately, one of the mechs were destroyed in the numerous conflicts taking place on roadside. The medium battle lance is at half strength with 2 functioning riflemen. The other 2 Warhammers were also destroyed on roadside a long time ago. The destroyed mechs were never replaced, but the surviving mechs have been fully repaired, and all of the mech warriors are at skill level 4. In my campaign guidebook for Archer Sierra, there is a section about traitors and surprise attacks. The defending player has the option to have 1 lance on patrol, and they can place that lance anywhere they wish on the map. So he decided to place his rifleman lance here. The light battle lance are all inactive, and will be able to activate in turn 2. Since this is a small scale battle, we're going to use our house rules for separated attacks, in which 1 die represents a skill die, and then for each point of damage there will be 1 additional d6 rolled. By combining the skill die and 1 attack die, you get the result for 1 damage. And if you use a lucky point to re-roll a die, it will only take place on the skill die and not the attack dice. Alright, I guess that covers everything for the battle. But before we get started, we would like to give a special thanks to all the Patreon supporters. Without your help, this channel would not be possible. Alright, let's get into turn 1. Since this is a surprise attack, but the Alliance player has a patrol, the Alliance automatically has initiative. Therefore, the Chupacabras will need to move and shoot first. The Urban Lance activates and jumps, or more accurately hops, onto the battlefield. For those of you not familiar with urban mechs, they are best described as trash receptacles, with guns and legs attached. By jumping, the Urbies have increased their TMM, but not by much. The Alliance activates the Rifleman Lance, and the 2 mechs move into cover of some rock formations. The Chupacabras activate their Heavy Tank Lance, and they go scooting around the Urban mechs, lining up their sights on their 2 riflemen. The Light Battle Lance of the Alliance still have their mech warriors scurrying around trying to power up their mechs. They are considered immobilized for this turn, and will not be able to take any actions. With movement complete, we move into the shooting phase. The Chupacabras will shoot first. and they decide to have both lances open fire on one of the riflemen. The target number was an 8 for the tanks and a 10 for the urban mechs. And despite all that firepower and lucky points, only 6 points of damage was inflicted, stripping away all the armor of the mech. The Alliance can now return fire, and both mechs decide to overheat, adding 1 additional potential damage to their dice roll. They both target one of the tanks and fire. Target number was a 7. A total of 4 points of damage was inflicted. Since the tank is a tracked vehicle, it has to take 2 motive checks since it received 2 different sources of damage. But both motive checks pass with no effect. With shooting complete, this brings turn 1 to a close. In turn 2, the Alliance won initiative. The Chupacabras will move and shoot first. The Chupacabras activate their tank lance and advance towards the rifleman. The Alliance activates his rifleman lance, and to keep their TMM up, he shifts them around the rock formation into cover. The Chupacabras activate their urban security lance, who also ground moves towards the rifleman. Finally, the light battle lance got all their systems nominal and are ready to step off. The fire moth is fast, and it ground moves into cover with a perfect shot of the traitors. The wasp and firefly both jump out into the open, but can line up shots on the tanks. Both mechs are relying on their jump jets to improve their TMM for the shooting round. With movement complete, we go into the shooting phase. The Chupacabras will shoot first. The urban security lance line up their sights on the fire moth and open fire. Target number was an 11. Only 1 urban mech was able to hit, dealing 1 damage, which stripped away the armor of the mech. However, this 1 hit was also a critical, which necessitated a critical check, damaging the fire control of the mech. One of the tanks also opened fire on the fire moth. Again, the target number was an 11. The tank hit with 1 damage, which was enough to finish off the mech, though it can still shoot back this turn. The other 3 tanks continue to pour their fire into the damaged rifleman. The target number was an 8. Another 6 shots nailed the rifleman, which was enough to destroy the mech, though it can still fire back this turn. The Alliance now has an opportunity to return fire. The 2 riflemen continue to pour fire into the damaged tank. Due to heat, the target number is an 8. And they put a total of 7 damage into that tank, instantly destroying it. The light battle lance take aim at one of the tanks. Target number for the fire moth was a 7 and a 9 for the wasp and firefly. The tank was hit with 6 points of damage. This caused 3 critical checks for the tank, 2 passed and 1 failed, damaging the motive, reducing its speed by 2 and dropping its TMM to 0. This brings turn 2 to a close. The Alliance has lost 2 mechs and the Chupacabras have lost 1 heavy battle tank, with another severely damaged. Normally the players might be considering retreat at this point, but these 2 army forces deeply dislike one another, and therefore retreat is not an option for them. They will fight to the very end. The Chupacabras won initiative for turn 3. The Alliance will need to move and shoot first. The Alliance activates his rifleman, which moves to cover behind the rock formation. The Chupacabra player activates his tank lance, who advances to short range on the rifleman, except for the broken tank, which kinda wanders off that direction. Next up, the light battle lance activates, and the firefly ground moves into cover. The wasp jumps into cover behind the air defense tower on top of the rock formation. And finally, the urban lance activates, and waddle shuffles forward. With movement complete, we go into the shooting phase. The Alliance will shoot first. The firefly opens fire on the damaged tank with a target number of 4. That's right, 4. And would you imagine, every single shot hit the tank, and the tank was destroyed. Nothing was left of it. The rifleman and wasp opened fire on another tank. The rifleman's target number was a 6 due to heat, and a 7 for the wasp since it had jumped. The rifleman hit 3 times, and the wasp hit 1, dealing a total of 4 damage, wiping out all of its armor. This caused the tank to require 2 critical checks for its motive, which it passed. The Chupacabras can return fire. The urban mechs take aim at the firefly with a target number of 9, and only 2 hit, taking 2 points of damage from its armor. Next, the 3 tanks fire at the rifleman at close range. The target number was a 6, and they hit with a total of 11 damage, which took out the armor and the structure of the mech, and the rifleman drops. With shooting complete, this brings turn 3 to a close. the Chupacabras lost another tank and the Alliance lost another mech. In turn 4, the Chupacabras won the initiative yet again. The Alliance will move and shoot first. The Alliance player thought for a very long time. He even considered retreating, but these mech warriors couldn't live with themselves if they ran from their rivals, so they decided to make this rock their last stand. The Chupacabras surrounded the Alliance, with their tanks moving to the mech's rear arcs and the urban mechs trudging forward. It was a glorious last stand, but it didn't last long. One urban mech was taken out, but the last 2 mechs of the Alliance battle lance were both destroyed. Fort Easterbridge has now fallen into the hands of the Chupacabras, and they have a starport to help facilitate their invasion. The Chupacabras lost 2 heavy battle tanks and 1 urban mech, and the Alliance lost 5 mechs. Things are already not looking too good for the Alliance. Well, I hope you enjoyed the battle report. Please make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the next battle report.